Before we get into tonight's stories, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I write these from New Jersey, and every time I see how far they travel, it genuinely surprises me. Let me know you're out there. Germany 2006 was the first World Cup I attended alone. I was 26, working a graduate scheme in Bristol, and I had saved for 18 months to make it happen. The problem was that 18 months of saving, when you're 26 and on a graduate salary, doesn't go as far as you'd hope, and accommodation in Germany that summer was running at prices I hadn't anticipated. Hotels near the Fan Mile in Berlin were booked out, or charging rates I simply couldn't manage. I'd been on a fan forum for about a year by then, one of those early internet communities built around the England supporters travel network, and someone posted that a good option was to check the hospitality thread, where German locals were offering spare rooms to visiting fans as a goodwill gesture. It was apparently a real thing. The tournament had generated that kind of atmosphere. People were genuinely doing it. Dieter messaged me 3 days after I posted asking about availability. His English was perfect, better than perfect, idiomatic in a way that suggested he'd either lived in an English-speaking country or spent a lot of time around native speakers. He was funny in his messages, self-deprecating, clearly knowledgeable about football. He said he had a spare room, a good apartment 20 minutes from the Fan Mile, and that he didn't want money, just company during the tournament. He'd been widowed 2 years earlier, he said, and the apartment felt large when the football was on and there was no one to watch it with. I read that and thought, this is exactly the kind of person who does this. A lonely man in a big apartment who wants the noise of someone else around during a tournament. I said yes. I took the train from the airport, and he was waiting at the station, which I hadn't asked him to do. The apartment was beautiful. High ceilings, good furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a quiet residential street. He had a good television and cold beer already open. We watched the evening match and talked for 2 hours, and I remember thinking I had been extraordinarily lucky. That this was the kind of thing that made you feel good about people. The random generosity of strangers. The way football could produce this. I noticed the bedroom door that first night. No lock, just a handle. I didn't think much of it. Lots of interior doors don't lock. I pushed a chair against it out of habit. I do that in hotels too. It's just something I've always done. And I slept fine. The Wi-Fi was the first real irritation. Dieter had given me a password that didn't work, and when I mentioned it, he apologized and said the router was temperamental. He'd look at it tomorrow. Tomorrow became the next day, and then the day after that. And I was getting by on mobile data, which was patchy in the apartment. Dropping signal in a way that meant my location wasn't updating on the app I used to stay in contact with my mother back home. I texted her from the street when I could. I didn't think of this as significant. I thought of it as an annoying router. He asked about my plans on the second day. Not intrusively, conversationally, over coffee. Who was I meeting at the match? Did I have friends in the city? Where had I told people I was staying? I told him I'd posted the address in the forum thread. He nodded and said that was sensible. You want someone to know where you are. The phrasing stuck very slightly, but I didn't hold on to it. Looking back, I can identify at least 4 or 5 moments in those first 2 days where something registered, and I let it go. That is the thing I find hardest to think about. Not what he turned out to be, but how cooperative I was in not seeing it. How much work I did on his behalf, without knowing I was doing it. After England's match, a win which mattered enormously to the mood of the evening, Dieter brought two women back to the apartment. He'd met them in the fan zone, English girls traveling together, genuinely warm and funny. The four of us drank on the balcony and watched the city, and it was the kind of evening that feels effortless, the kind you remember years later as what travel is supposed to feel like. I was happy. I was genuinely, uncomplicated happy. I remember someone refilling my glass. I remember music being put on. I remember laughing at something. I woke up at 4 a.m. on the sofa with every light in the apartment off. The women were gone. Dieter's bedroom door was closed. I had no memory of the previous 3 hours. Not hazy memory. Not half-formed fragments. Nothing. A clean break. Like a power cut. I lay there for a moment trying to locate the edge of it. The last thing I could recall. And the last thing was someone refilling my glass. That was the wall. My mouth tasted wrong. My phone said it was 4:17 a.m. I went to the bathroom and ran cold water and looked at myself in the mirror for a while. I felt functional, not sick, not visibly wrong, just emptied out. I told myself I had drunk more than I'd realized. I told myself I'd fallen asleep and that was all it was. I didn't fully believe it. The next morning, I noticed my passport had been moved. I kept it in the front zip pocket of my bag, always, and it was now in the main compartment. The bag had been closed. Someone had opened it, taken the passport out, and put it back somewhere slightly wrong. I stood in the bedroom, holding it, and turning it over in my hands, and then I put it in my money belt, and fastened the money belt under my shirt. I found the camera about an hour later. Dieter had left it on the kitchen counter, a digital compact, nothing unusual, the kind everyone had in 2006. It was unlocked, and I don't know exactly what impulse made me scroll through it, but I did. There were photos from the fan zone, from the match, from the evening on the balcony, and then a photograph of my return flight itinerary. I had printed it before leaving Bristol and folded it into my passport. Someone had unfolded it and laid it flat on the kitchen table and photographed it. Flight number, date, departure time, booking reference. All of it. The camera hadn't been hidden. It was just sitting there on the counter. I stood in that kitchen for what felt like a long time. What I felt wasn't exactly fear, not yet. It was something more like the sensation of a room you thought was solid, shifting very slightly under your feet. I went through what I knew and what I could explain and what I couldn't, and the column of things I couldn't explain was too long. I went back to my room, packed everything into my bag, and came back out to find Dieter standing in the kitchen doorway with 2 cups of coffee. He held one out to me. He was smiling. I said I thought I needed to head out, meet some people that I might not be back that night. His expression didn't change. The smile stayed exactly where it was. He set the second coffee down on the counter slowly, and he said, "You don't have to go. Nobody knows you're here." He said it pleasantly. The tone was pleasant. He could have been reassuring a guest that they weren't imposing. That was the register. Warm, easy, the voice he'd used for 3 days. And the words were the most frightening thing anyone has ever said to me. I said that was great, actually. Maybe I'd stay another night, but I just needed to pop out for some things. Could we maybe go to the supermarket? He said, of course, give him 10 minutes to get dressed. I sat on the sofa and waited and did not let anything show on my face. And when he went to change, I picked up my bag and walked out of the apartment and down 4 flights of stairs and out onto the street. And I did not stop walking until I reached a U-Bahn station. I called the police from a phone box. My German was non-existent, but I found someone who spoke English, and I gave them Dieter's address and explained as much as I could. I found a hostel. I slept with the light on. 2 days later, the officer I'd spoken to called the number I'd left. He told me they had visited the apartment. It had been cleared out. Not abandoned, cleared. Furniture gone, fixtures gone, the place professionally empty. The lease, when they looked into it, had been taken on a short-term basis 3 months before the tournament. The name on the lease was not Dieter. I flew home on my scheduled flight. I didn't tell anyone the full story for a long time, not because I thought they wouldn't believe me, but because I couldn't yet make it into a story with a shape. It was still just a set of facts that I kept turning over. About a year later, I started looking through archived posts on the forum. Not obsessively, just occasionally, following threads. I found 3 separate posts from different tournaments: Euro 2004, Japan-Korea 2002, France 1998, from people describing a host that matched the pattern. Warm, fluent, funny, free accommodation near the main venue. One mentioned a first name I didn't recognize. One described a similar morning of missing hours, framed uncertainly. The way you frame something when you're not sure what you're accusing anyone of. None of them had reported it. None of them had connected the posts to each other. I don't know what he wanted. I have theories, and I don't want to share them, because they're the kind of theories that, once said aloud, don't leave. What I know is that he had been doing this for at least 8 years across multiple countries, and that he had my flight details and knew my name and had 3 hours of my life that I cannot account for. 6 months after I got home, a friend request appeared on my Facebook. I didn't recognize the name or the profile picture, so I clicked through to look. The profile had been created 2 days after I'd returned to Bristol. There was one photo, a crowd shot from the England match. Thousands of faces, the stand full, everyone watching the pitch. I was in it. Someone had drawn a red circle around me in what looked like a felt-tip pen, or maybe edited it in, and then photographed the print. That was the profile picture. My face in a crowd, circled in red. I reported the account and blocked it, and it was gone within a day. I don't know if he made another one. I don't know if he's still doing what he does. The forum threads I found have long since dropped off the first page. New fans at new tournaments, new hospitality posts, new people looking for somewhere cheap to stay. I don't know how many of them said yes. Marcus and I had been planning the trip for almost a year. We weren't the kind of guys who traveled. We were 22, both working part-time jobs, splitting a 2-bedroom apartment outside Columbus. But the World Cup doesn't come around often, and Argentina was in our group stage, and Marcus had been an obsessive his whole life. The kind of person who woke up at 3 a.m. to watch qualifiers. When he found out you could get standing fan zone tickets for under $100, there was no real conversation to be had. We booked the flights that same night. Qatar was strange in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. Not bad strange, just compressed. Everything felt close together and also somehow far apart. The heat, even in November, was different from anything I'd grown up with, and the metro ran constantly, but the crowds moved in these dense pulses, like a tide that had a specific schedule. We'd been there 4 days before the match and had mostly figured out the rhythms. I felt comfortable. That's worth saying because I think it explains why I wasn't more careful. The Argentina match was electric in the way that only a large crowd can make something feel. We were in the outdoor fan zone, not inside the stadium itself, watching on a massive screen with maybe 8 or 10,000 other people. Marcus had his face painted. I remember thinking he looked genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen from him since maybe high school. That uncomplicated kind of happy, before life gets complicated. We drank too much. We sang songs we didn't know the words to. When Argentina scored, a stranger grabbed me by the shoulders and shouted something in a language I didn't recognize, and I shouted back, and we both laughed. The problem started after, with the dispersal. I don't think people who haven't been in a crowd of that size after a major event can fully picture what it's like. It isn't panic exactly. Everyone is in a good mood. But the sheer physics of it, thousands of bodies all moving toward the same 2 or 3 exit points, the metro station at capacity, the street narrow, creates its own kind of pressure. You can feel it in your chest. Marcus and I had been together the whole night, but when the crowd started moving in earnest, I lost physical contact with him within about 3 minutes. I could still see the back of his head for another minute or 2 after that, and then I couldn't. I wasn't worried at first. We'd talked about this. If we got separated, we'd meet at the fountain near the metro entrance. There was a specific one we'd passed every day that week and used as a landmark. I pushed through the crowd toward it and waited for about 20 minutes. He didn't come. My phone was at 11%. Marcus's went to voicemail. I sent him a WhatsApp and watched it show 1 gray check, not 2, meaning it hadn't delivered. Probably no signal on his end. I waited another 15 minutes. The crowd around me was thinning by then, and I started to feel the specific kind of unease that you get when something that should have resolved itself hasn't. It was while I was standing there, close to the fountain, that the man approached me. I don't know how to describe him in a way that makes him sound as wrong as he eventually turned out to be, because at the time he didn't read as wrong at all. He was maybe 50, heavy-set, wearing a light-colored button-down shirt. He spoke good English. He asked if I'd lost someone, and I said yes, my friend. We got separated. He nodded like this was something he saw all the time, which maybe he did. He said he had a car nearby and could take us back to the accommodation district. He mentioned the general area where most of the budget hotels were clustered, which was accurate, once I found my friend. I said thanks, maybe I'd let him know. He waited near me for a few minutes, not crowding me, just present. Then he said, "Is your friend Marcus?" And I remember looking at him and saying yes. Why? And he said he'd heard me calling the name while I was pushing through the crowd earlier. I accepted that. I don't know why exactly, but I did. It felt plausible. I had been saying Marcus's name. Marcus's phone finally delivered my message about 10 minutes later, but he didn't respond. His last location, from when he'd been active on Find My Friends earlier in the evening, showed him near the fan zone, where he should have been. The man with the button down had drifted away at some point. I hadn't noticed him leave. I went back to the hotel alone at around midnight, assuming Marcus had maybe caught a separate train and was already there. He wasn't. By 2 a.m., I was genuinely scared. By morning, I had spoken to someone at the hotel desk who spoke to someone else, and eventually, a very tired official from what I understood to be a non-emergency liaison office took a report from me. His last updated location ping, which I'd found by checking a different app, one we'd installed before the trip for exactly this kind of situation, put him in a residential district about 4 miles from the stadium. There was no reason for him to be there. No bars, no hotels, nothing that would draw a tourist. I showed the official the map. He wrote it down. The next 2 days are hard to describe in any linear way because they didn't feel linear. I spent most of them retracing routes I'd already walked, calling numbers I'd already called, sitting in the hotel room watching my phone. I filed a formal missing persons report. I contacted the embassy. I called his mother, which was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And I sat on the edge of the hotel bed afterwards and stared at the wall for a long time. On the second day, while I was speaking again with the liaison official, he mentioned almost incidentally that CCTV footage from outside the metro station had been reviewed. There was a man visible near Marcus in the last clear frame, walking close behind him as the crowd thinned. The footage was grainy, low angle, but the official turned his laptop toward me, and I looked. It was the button-down shirt. I was almost certain. I told the official about the man, the offer of the ride, the thing about the name. He wrote it down again. He didn't tell me what he made of it. I got the impression that he was being careful about what he said to me, and I couldn't tell if that was bureaucratic caution or something else. On day 3, police recovered Marcus's phone from a drainage channel in the residential district where his last ping had been. It was in a plastic bag, which is the detail that still bothers me most when I think about it. The bagging of it, the deliberateness that implied. Someone had not simply dropped the phone. Someone had put it somewhere. The photo was there when they accessed the contents. All the pictures from that evening had been deleted. The ones from the fan zone, the ones of us before the match, the video Marcus had taken of the moment Argentina scored. All of it, except one photograph, time-stamped at 2:04 in the morning. The location data had been stripped. The image showed a room, dark, almost entirely dark, with a single visible light source somewhere off to the right, too dim to identify. There was a wall visible, maybe a floor. Nothing recognizable. Nothing that looked like a hotel room or anywhere a tourist would be. I don't know who took it or why it was left. I have thought about that for 2 years, and I still don't have anything reasonable. Marcus turned up on his own, alive, on the morning of day 4. He was outside the hotel when I came down. He looked fine. Tired, maybe thinner than I remembered, moving slightly carefully, but fine. He told the police he was fine. He told me he was fine. He told everyone he was fine, and he did not tell anyone where he had been. I tried, once, directly. I sat across from him in the hotel lobby and I said, "Marcus, I need you to tell me what happened." He looked at me for a long moment, not evasively, not like he was hiding something, but like someone working out how to explain something in a language they don't fully share. And then he said he was okay, and he was sorry I'd been worried, and he wanted to go home. He flew out the next morning. I flew out 2 days after. When I got back to Columbus, his bedroom door was closed. I assumed he needed space, and I gave it to him. I went to work. I made dinner. I knocked once, the second night, and he said he was tired. That was the last full sentence he said to me. I came home from a shift the following Friday, and his room was empty. Bed stripped, closet cleared, the little shelf above his desk where he kept his passport and his chargers and the small Argentina scarf he'd had since he was a kid. All of it gone. No note. He'd done it while I was out, which meant he'd planned it, which meant he'd been waiting for a window. I texted him. He answered a few times over the following weeks, short and cordial, like someone wrapping up a business transaction. Then, not at all. I told myself he needed time. I told myself whatever had happened had been traumatic, and people process trauma differently. I told myself a lot of things, and none of them made me feel better about the fact that I had been the one who suggested we split up to find water. He'd gone one way, I'd gone another, and I had spent 3 days not knowing if I would ever see him again. The guilt doesn't sit in a single place. It moves around. I saw him on Instagram about 8 months ago. A mutual friend had tagged him in something. A group photo, outdoors, sunny, everyone in good spirits. I almost scrolled past it. Then I looked more carefully at the background, at the structure visible over the group's shoulders, and I felt my stomach drop in a way that's difficult to articulate. It was the stadium, the same stadium in Qatar, during a different tournament, a different year. He was standing there smiling in a group of people I didn't recognize, looking completely relaxed, looking like someone who had no particular feelings about that location at all. I've looked at that photo more times than I should. I've looked at his face in it, trying to find something, some tension, some residue. There's nothing. He looks like a man who went somewhere he's been before and had a good time. That's the part I can't fit anywhere. Not the 72 hours, not the phone, not the photograph in the dark room. The part that stays with me is that he went back. Freely, it seems. Willingly. With other people who don't know what I know. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure I want to. I want to be clear about something before I get into this, because I know how it's going to sound. I am not the kind of person who sees patterns where there are none. I'm an accountant. I have been an accountant for 19 years. My entire professional life is built on the difference between a coincidence in a data set and an actual irregularity, and I am good at knowing which is which. I want you to hold on to that, because by the end of this, you are going to want to find me a rational explanation, and I have already tried every one you're going to suggest. I have attended every World Cup since 2006. Germany was the first. I was 31, newly divorced, and a friend had a spare ticket and an open invitation. I went for 10 days, saw 3 matches, drank too much German beer, and came home changed in the way that only a certain kind of event can change you. I went to South Africa in 2010 on my own, Brazil in 2014, Russia in 2018, Qatar in 2022. It has become the organizing principle of my adult life in a way I'm slightly embarrassed to admit. Every 4 years I plan around it. I save for it. I go. The woman first registered consciously in Brazil. I was at the match in Fortaleza, a group stage game, nothing that would make headlines, good football, but not remarkable. My seat was in the upper tier, slightly to the left of center. The stadium was loud and full, and I was doing what I always do, which is watch the crowd as much as the match, taking it in. And at some point in the first half, I became aware that a woman 4 rows down and 3 seats to my right was not watching the match. She was watching me. I want to be careful about how I describe this because I know the immediate instinct is to read it as flattering or as me misreading the direction of someone's gaze. But I have the same experience most people do of someone looking at them across a room. You feel it before you confirm it. There's a specific quality to it, and this was that. She was turned slightly in her seat, facing me. When I looked directly at her, she didn't look away. She held it for a moment, then turned back toward the pitch as if nothing had happened. She was unremarkable in appearance. Dark hair, medium build, somewhere between 40 and 55 in the way that some people occupy a wide range and you couldn't pin it closer than that. No team colors, no flag. She was just there, alone, in a crowd of 60,000 people, looking at me. I forgot about it by halftime, or I told myself I had. I saw her again in Salvador 11 days later. Different match, different stadium, different city 3 hours away. I was in a bar district 2 nights before the game, in a group with 4 other travelers I'd met at the previous match, none of whom I'd known before the tournament. We were outside, street tables, late evening. I looked up at some point, and she was standing on the far side of the street, not looking at me this time, or not that I caught, just standing, waiting, apparently for someone or something. I pointed her out to the guy next to me, a Belgian named Dirk, and said I thought I'd seen her at a match a week ago. He shrugged. "Big tournament," he said. "You see the same faces." That was reasonable. I accepted it. The third time was Belo Horizonte. She was in the stadium again, upper tier, and I am certain it was her. Same woman, same stillness. And this time I noticed she had no drink, no snack, none of the incidental props that people accumulate over 90 minutes in a crowd. She just sat there across the arc of the stand, and I spent more of that match watching her than I watched the game. When I got home from Brazil, I started going through my photos. I have always taken a lot of photographs at matches. Not good photographs, just documentation, the habit of wanting proof that I was there. I went through the Fortaleza folder, the Salvador folder, Belo Horizonte. She appeared in the background of 2 shots I'd taken without knowing she was there. I didn't find that alarming at the time exactly. I found it interesting in the way a puzzle is interesting. Then, for a reason I still can't fully articulate, I went back to my Germany photos. I had digital copies going back to 2006, not organized well, but searchable, and I went through them over the course of a long weekend with a glass of wine and more patience than I usually have. I was looking for something, and I didn't entirely know what. I found her in Dortmund. I had taken a wide crowd shot before a match, the kind you take to capture scale, the whole stand visible, thousands of faces. And there she was, 4 rows behind where I'd been sitting, off to the left. The same woman. The same dark hair, same build, same absence of any team affiliation visible in what she was wearing. I stared at that photograph for a long time. 2006 was 8 years before Brazil. I had not met this woman. I had not noticed her. She was simply there, behind me, in a photograph I had taken of a stadium crowd and filed away and not looked at until now. I found her in one more Germany photo after that, in the background of a street shot I'd taken outside a bar in Munich. She was at the edge of the frame, slightly blurred, walking in the direction of the camera. I couldn't be completely certain at that distance and resolution, but I was mostly certain, which is not the same as certain, and I told myself that mattered. By Russia 2018, I was paying attention. I had bought my tickets through a private resale group, not an official channel, a forum I'd been a member of for years, people who buy and sell among themselves without a lot of public visibility. The seat I bought for the match in St. Petersburg was in the upper tier of the East Stand, row J, seat 24. I'd bought it 6 months earlier from a man I had never met in person. She was in row K, seat 26. 1 row behind me, 2 seats to the right. I know this because I turned around before kickoff, a habit scanning the crowd, and she was there. And she smiled. Not a large smile, not an acknowledgement of a stranger's smile. Just a slight adjustment at the corners of her mouth, like someone seeing a thing they expected to see. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look like someone who had just happened to sit near someone they vaguely recognized. She looked settled, patient. I turned back around, and I watched the match, and I did not turn around again. And the specific quality of that, the not turning around, the choice of it, the way I sat slightly rigid for 90 minutes, was its own kind of answer. After Russia, I started documenting properly. I pulled every photo I had across all 4 tournaments, went through them systematically, created a folder. She appeared in 11 images across Germany, Brazil, and Russia. 11 confirmed sightings spanning 12 years. In none of them does she look meaningfully different. Not younger in the earlier photographs, not older in the later ones. I am noticeably older. I can track the gray coming into my hair across the years, the way my face has settled into itself. She looks the same in 2006 as she does in 2018. I have no explanation for that. I have tried to find one. For Qatar, I was careful in ways I had not been before. I told no one my itinerary beyond the city. I booked accommodation under a friend's name, his card, his details, a hotel in a district I'd chosen specifically because it wasn't near any of the main tourist corridors. I did not post on any of the forums I usually used. I did not share my seat numbers in advance. I attended the matches, and I looked for her, and I did not find her, which should have been a relief, and instead felt like a different kind of warning. On the night after the final group stage match, I got back to the hotel at around midnight. The lobby was quiet, a few people at the bar, a couple waiting for the elevator. She was in one of the chairs near the window, not facing the door, sitting with a small glass of something on the table next to her, reading or appearing to read. As I came through the door, she looked up, and we looked at each other across the lobby for what I would estimate was about 4 seconds. Then she went back to her reading. I went to the desk. I asked the clerk, as steadily as I could manage, whether that woman had been there long. He said she'd arrived about an hour ago. I asked if she was a guest. He checked and said there was no reservation under the name she'd given at the desk, but she'd said she was waiting for someone. I went to my room. I did not sleep particularly well. In the morning, there was an envelope at the desk with my name on it. My real name, not my friend's. Inside was a single piece of paper, my home address, my mother's phone number, and a seat number, section 112, row F, seat 19. A stadium configuration I didn't immediately recognize. It took me about 20 minutes of searching to identify it. MetLife Stadium, New Jersey, the proposed venue for the 2026 World Cup final. I have not purchased a ticket for the 2026 World Cup. I have not decided whether to go. I had not, at the time I found that note, made any inquiry, joined any waiting list, or told anyone I was considering it. I don't know what section 112, row F, seat 19 means. Whether it's a seat I will buy, or a seat someone will buy for me, or a seat someone will be sitting in regardless of whether I'm anywhere near it. I don't know if the note is a threat or an invitation, or something else entirely that I don't have a word for. The 2026 final is in July. I have been thinking about it since December 2022, and I have not made a decision. And I am aware that not making a decision is itself a kind of decision. And I am aware that she may already know which way it goes. I'll let you know. If these stories kept you up tonight, my psychological thriller audiobooks are on this channel. Full length, same dark tone, completely free. Start with The Husband. Link in the description.